Let me pull that up. All right, so Elizabeth Englebretson is a public interest landscape designer with the Mississippi State University Gulf Coast Community Design Studio, or GCCDS, which is a professional design outreach college of art architecture and design located in Biloxi, Mississippi. Elizabeth earned a Bachelor of Fine Studio Arts from the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And after working for many years in a variety of jobs combining science, art, and community engagement, Elizabeth found her way to landscape architecture. She earned her Master's of Landscape Architecture from the University of Massachusetts and Amherst, Massachusetts in 2013, with her thesis focusing on understanding and investigating how people reconnect to their landscape post-disaster. Since joining GCCDS in 2014, Elizabeth has worked on a variety of large and small-scale projects that focus on strengthening, supporting, and reinforcing a sense of place, placekeeping, and the community connection and agency over their landscape. And I invited Elizabeth today to speak to us about one of her projects, the Plastic-Free Gulf Coast, but you're free to ask her any other questions about that, her biography and what she does. I know everybody's really interested in everybody's different career paths, so there might be some curveballs for you, Elizabeth, but I'll let you go ahead and get started with your presentation.
Hi, everybody. So being online is very strange for me because I function best in front of people. Can you guys raise your hands who saw me present at the sustainability conference? Who did I meet there? Okay. Yeah, so you guys have a general idea of the project. Do the rest of you know anything about Plastic-Free Gulf Coast, or are we starting from zero? Right? A little bit. Okay, so, and can y'all hear me? Yeah. Okay. Plastic-Free Gulf Coast was started as a grassroots movement in Bay St. Louis by 3 community members. They started by just going to restaurants and asking if they would be willing to do straw-on requests for the month of April. They got pretty good buy-in from restaurants. They had pretty good success, but you know, it wasn't going to be sustainable. It was going to become a full-time job for them. None of them were able to commit that amount of time. So I talked with them about writing grants. I wrote a grant for the Gulf of Mexico Alliance 5-star grant program. I got that grant in 2016. It all blurs together. That was a $10,000 grant. 2 years later, I applied for the NOAA Marine Debris Prevention Grant, and that is a $100,000 grant, give or take. And I received that grant, so that's the grant I'm currently funded to work under. I recently have tentatively received an EPA Trash-Free Waters grant in the amount of $9,000 shy of $500,000. So, over the thing I want to impress on you guys is that this was started by 3 retired women in their living room, and over the course of 4 years, we've built it into a $500,000 project. So, how many of you think that's probably been easy? Probably none. Yeah, it's not been easy. It's been very, it's taken a lot of critical thinking, taken a lot of thinking outside the box. We know how we've been doing things for so long, so let's try something radically different, right? Let's just try something we haven't done before and see what happens, and see if people respond. And so here we are. So 2 years from now, I hope to double the amount of funding that I'm getting, right? So these are my goals. With each grant, I set goals within that grant, you know, reduction of marine debris, data collection, all those things. And I reach those goals. So the project is moving forward, but me personally, I've set the goal to continue growing the project from the work that I've already been doing. And a lot of that work involves listening. One thing I've learned from this project, I'm not from Mississippi, I'm not from the South. Different regions within the country, as you all know, approach things differently. We have different cultures, different languages, different ways of living, different ways of being raised, different ways that we interact with the environment. Me coming down here from Massachusetts was very difficult. In Massachusetts, the mindset about environmental conservation is very different than it is down here. Would you guys agree that the people of Mississippi and Alabama, especially the coastal region, are dependent upon their ecology for survival? Yeah, right? We depend on fishing, tourism, oystering. Like, you're pretty much born to the water. If you're from here, like, you are so connected to the water, I think a lot of people don't even realize it, right? Like, we have bayous running through our backyard. I walk 2 blocks and I'm at the Mississippi Sound. You know, we deal with flooding, like water controls our life. Water is the reason why our economy is so good as well. Shipping, that's how our cities were built. Do you guys agree with that? Yeah? So it was really confusing to me when I started this project and I started talking about reduce, reuse, recycle, refuse, right? The 4 R's. We're going to start refusing plastic. I couldn't understand if I was talking to people and I was saying that, microplastics are killing our oceans, or not throwing away that, using that single-use plastic bottle, throwing it away or recycling it is not enough. I couldn't understand where that disconnect was. It took a lot of openness on my part to sit down and listen to people and hear what they had to say about plastic use, right? About the environment. We had to find a way for me to recognize that people down here, they do care about the environment. They do care about the health. You talk to someone for an hour and you start off totally disagreeing and having arguments about plastic and microplastic and all this, and then you end up in the same place, agreeing that we have to have clean water in order to support our economy, right? Does that make sense? Right, and so it was just about me being open to seeing things from a different point of view, right? Understanding where people were coming from and how I could talk to people about the issue of plastic without people feeling threatened. People don't like to be told what to do, right? If I tell you you're not allowed to have a straw, no one can have a straw. Like, my instinct is to be like, well, I'm going to go get 500 straws and I'm going to use all the straws. Don't tell me what to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's that kind of that human pushback, the idea of control. With Plastic Free Gulf Coast, I want people to make the choice themselves. I want people to be able to relate their plastic use and their plastic waste, and I want them to be able to connect that to their family's health. I want them to make that connection to the economy. Does that make sense? I want people to choose to not use a straw, because that's the way that you create long-term sustainable change. You don't force everyone to act the same way. You give people science, you give people the space to express themselves and to discuss ideas and have dialogue. And then you give people a choice, right? Would you like a straw or not? That's kind of the way that it took me like a year to get to that point. Because I was like, why would anyone freak out if they couldn't have a straw? But everyone, people use straws for different reasons, for one. Also, straws are such a part of our life that it's weird to not use a straw. For some people, it's just, you just don't do that. They've been raised with straws. There was a question, sorry. Yeah, okay, so alternatives to straws. Let me see if I can share this screen. So when I realized that people need a choice, right? Like down here, like in Massachusetts, you can go to restaurants and you can get biodegradable or plastic alternative takeout. You can go to grocery stores and use your reusable bags. Everyone's using that there. You know, you have a place to refill your water bottle. There's a lot of times, unless you're on a college campus, you don't have a place to refill your water bottle. I couldn't name one water fountain or refill station in the city of Biloxi that I would be able to publicly access. You know? And so we just don't have the option. People down here do care. They just don't have the option. And so a lot of my work is getting people access to those options. And if you saw me in Mobile, you know, I have this like rat's nest, treasure trove of stuff that I bring with me, and I let people touch it and I let people experience it and use it. Because that's a very important part, if not the most important. It's about normalizing these products, right? It's about people being able to try them and see if they like them. It's about people being able to try something different and people being able to say, no, I think that's awful. I'm not going to use that unless I have a better alternative. So then we find that alternative, right? We're not trying to shove things down people's throats. So I came up with these toolkits. I worked with a marketing corporation called Marketing for Change. They're awesome. They helped me redo the logo, and they also helped me produce these toolkits. Can y'all see them? Yes. Okay. So this one's for meetings, and it just gives people tips. And then it gives my contact information, which is super important so that if people have questions, they can contact me. Let's see here. Here is, so alternatives to straws. I don't know if you guys have seen the hay straws. These are great. These are a lot of fun. And I particularly like these hay straws as cocktail stirrers. You know, like the shorter black straws that you usually get in your drink. These are great because these are literally made out of hay. They are also on the celiac scale. They're celiac safe, so people can use them if they have celiac or gluten intolerant. And the bottom picture is a PLA wrap straw. So PLA is plasticized plant starch. So it is still a plastic product, but it is not a petroleum-based plastic. And so a plant-based, a starch-based straw is biodegradable eventually, and it's also commercially compostable, right? It's most likely not going to break down in your backyard compost because you don't have the right moisture or heat control, but in commercial settings, it can break down and be turned back into soil. So the PLA straw versus the petroleum never goes away. Petroleum plastic only breaks down into smaller pieces called microplastics. PLA straws will eventually biodegrade and return back to their organic state. Petroleum-based plastics will not. So that's why I call PLA plastic training wheel plastic, right? Because a lot of the issues that people have with getting away from plastics using alternative products is the texture difference. Like, the first time I used a paper straw, I just thought to myself, man, I wish this had some sort of coating. You know, like it's like, it's awful, right? So I needed that training wheel. I needed to be able to switch to PLA, open that discussion, and have that dialogue with people, right? My favorite, though, is the hay straws. Okay, so let's go up here. Well, hang on one second. Let's take a break. Do you guys have any questions real quick? I just shoved so much information down your throat.
Boris, do you want to ask your question?
Noodle straws are awful. Yes, and
Can you hear
noodle
me?
straws are not celiac safe. Just, you got to be careful when there's people with allergies, people, that can't have certain products, like noodle straw is not going to help me. Like noodle straw send me to the hospital. Does anybody have a question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was just gonna say my question was, has your organization faced a lot of pushback from local groups or individuals? Many people are usually stuck in their ways, and how do you react to pushback?
Yes. Yes. People don't like me sometimes. I react to pushback by not trying to force someone to understand what I'm trying to tell them. When you're getting a lot of pushback, a lot of times angry pushback, this issue has been politicized. I won't politicize it. I refuse to. Mother Nature doesn't care about our human politics. When I get pushback, I just try to talk to people. I try to listen more. If somebody is screaming in my face about a straw, it's usually not about the straw. You know what I mean? So I get pushback. I say, you are aware of the consequences of using these products. You know that this straw is never going to go away. If you choose to use that straw, that's your choice. But you're aware of the consequences to our the future of our planet. I'm not going to force you to not use a straw. It's your choice. Because arguing with people is just, it's so pointless. And if they keep pushing and they're like real pissed, I just walk away. Some of the restaurants that I've been working with have had people storm out of their restaurants, throw drinks, because they had straw on request. You can still have a straw, you just have to ask for it. And that made people so angry that you would throw a drink. That's not about the straw. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Yeah, it's so exhausting to fight. Like I have a restaurant in Louisiana. They opened a new concept restaurant and it's totally plastic free. I was like, that's amazing. We're getting all the press. We're having a party. I'm coming out. I don't eat meat, but I'll eat something. And they said no. They didn't want any press around it. They didn't want any sort of plastic free, add you to the map, because their customer base was so, or is so, kind of wrapped up in the politics of it, kind of wrapped up in that idea of, because I'm talking about changing to something other than a petroleum-based plastic, because I'm talking about change, I'm here to take away your rights, or I'm here to tell you what to do. So they opened this restaurant and they found great success before we all got locked down. And they didn't tell anybody. So they got zero pushback. They've had no feedback, negative feedback about their product, even though they're bagasse, they're paper-based. It's amazing. And so sometimes if people just don't know, there's no problem, right? Does that make sense? It's like you guys wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a PLA straw and a petroleum straw. I mean, you might, depending on your PLA experience, but most people can't tell the difference. And so they're angry about something else, or they're upset about something else, right? So I always lead it's a choice. It's your choice. All right, anybody else? I'll go back to my PowerPoint. I might still be on my PowerPoint. Okay, so let's see here. Let's talk about nurdles. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. How many people know what a nurdle is? It's spelled N-U-R-D-L-E. All right. If you raised your hand, chime in. What's a nurdle? Go ahead. Bottom, I don't know this guy on the bottom with the glasses.
The nurdle is a very small little plastic bit, right?
Yeah, the nurdle is pre-production plastic. I think I'm sharing my screen again. So yeah, a nurdle is, can you guys see this? Everybody can see that screen? Okay, these are just some little screenshots that I pulled up. So these are nurdles. This bottom, the dime, that is a nurdle that I found on the beach in Mississippi across from USM Long Beach. So these are pre-production plastic pellets. The top picture shows nurdles from Lavaca Creek in Texas. These were discharged from the Formosa plastic plant in Point Comfort, Texas. This is also the same Formosa plant that is building a plastic plant in St. James Parish in Welcome, Louisiana. Formosa Plastic was just assigned one of the largest ever Clean Water Act fines. 50 million. That lawsuit was brought on by a group of concerned citizens that were seeing all of these nurdles washing out and finding them in their waterways. What do you think would be one of the major environmental impacts of these nurdles?
Wildlife is the first thing that pops in my head.
So what, where?
I was going to say, like, wildlife is the first thing that pops into my head. Fish and stuff eating it that aren't supposed to eat pieces of plastic. They're supposed to eat natural food, you know?
Yeah.
Things eating things that aren't digestible.
Bioaccumulation as well. Plastic bonds to I'm going to get this wrong, organophosphate, like DDT. Plastic bonds to car oil and other chemicals and nasties in our water. So the longer that these microplastics and these nurdles are floating around in our water, the more chemicals they're absorbing, right? So the fish eat them, that transfers into them, and as the largest mammals on the food chain, when it gets to us, we're consuming very higher, like much higher concentrations of these chemicals and of these plastics because we're higher on the food chain. We're not eating the tiny fish. We're eating the big fish that ate all of those tiny fish. Does that make sense? Yeah. So with seabirds, like you always see that picture of the albatross, it's like, it's totally dead and you see the contents of its stomach is all plastic. So animals eat this plastic, they get zero nutritional value from it, but they feel full, right? Like animals aren't out there like quarantine eating like we are. Like animals eat until they're full. So if they're filling themselves up with plastic, they're not getting any nutrition and they starve. Like that's the reality. Like they can't digest it, they can't pass it, and so eventually they starve. Same thing with the whales. You know, you'll see the whale that washed up on the beach with so many tons of plastic. That's why. They can't get rid of it and they just starve. It's terrifying and awful. So anyways, so the second picture here, this is from the Nurdle Patrol website. This shows all the different kinds of nurdles. A lot of times if it's kind of more this color, you know, it's a little bit dirtier, it's been in the water longer, but they also do have different colors of nurdles for different kinds of plastic. And then I put a link down here. This Texas Tribune article talks about the Formosa Plastic Clean Water Act lawsuit. So I asked you guys that question about recycling. That's why I like to talk about minerals too. Like, recycling is a great part of reducing our plastic waste, but the only way that we're going to reduce and eventually eliminate plastic waste to the point that we need to as humans to save our species, mind you, we have to stop plastic before it's produced, right? So we need to stop plastic before it's even in this nurdle form, right? We need to stop plastic before it becomes that water bottle. Like, we only recycle 9% of the plastic that we could recycle. Like, that's not good enough. That's not going to help us lower the amount of marine debris and lower the amount of plastic. Like, currently, the plastic industries are upping their production of plastic. Can anyone guess why? Plastic is petroleum based. So when companies are now having to pay to have their water or to have their oil taken off their hands because they can't store it, they're going to turn it into plastic. They're going to find a way to still make money off of this product. So they're still producing oil, they're still producing petroleum, and so plastic is a good way to keep production up while using petroleum. So let me see here. Yes, this is from an NPR little thing about plastic. Recycling is a business. I think that's important to keep in mind. It's a commodity. You're selling the product that you're producing. So there isn't like a happy land of recycling, right? Like, someone, if you're a recycler, you're producing a commodity that then needs to be sold, or you don't make money. And there is zero money for plastics right now, like even less, because the cost of oil is so low, right? So it's cheaper now for companies to make new plastic than it is for them to recycle it, right? That's not really going to lead us anywhere. Here is the gas I was talking about. This bottom example is what it could look like. These are similar to the products that I use with my restaurants up here. This shows you, like, we're not talking about a little bit of waste. Like, the gas is the product left over after the production, after all the good stuff is squeezed out of the sugar. It's the fibers that are left over. Normally, they are made into pellets and then burned for energy, which is a great way to use them, right? Highly renewable resource. But sometimes they're made into biodegradable to-go materials, right? There is a company in Florida that's making these called pellets. They're the only one in the United States. So here are some price differences. So if I'm a restaurant, styrofoam is 0.09 cents for each one of these clamshells. This is the price difference between that and the gas. So to me, it's totally understandable why styrofoam and plastic are still being used in such high quantity. Like, if you're a restaurant and you're triple bottom line, you got zero margin, zero room for error, you're going to do what's cheapest, right? You're going to do what's going to help balance your budget. So what I do is I work with restaurants to find alternative products and find a way to kind of retool their budget so that, you know, where they're sourcing products, what products they're using, so that they can switch to plastic alternatives without going out of business and or raising their prices to consumers. And I had proof of concept with Mockingbird Cafe in Bay St. Louis. Ah, so this is a picture of industrial composting. Has anyone ever investigated industrial composting? There's no industrial composting down here that I've been able to find in the South. But basically, it's usually done inside so that it can be heavily controlled temperature-wise and moisture-wise. And that is where we can compost all of these products that say industrial composting only. Like a lot of times you'll see something that says compostable, but it really only means it's industrial compostable. Because they regulate the heat, they regulate the temperature so much more in these environments. So, you know, there's a lot of greenwashing with going plastic free. It's like, but this says it's compostable, it's got to be better. Industrial compostable, not in your backyard, right? Like, we're kind of at that point with the greenwashing. I'm working on things like this with my tentative EPA grant. I'll be getting a water refill station. How many of you guys go to festivals where you have to buy bottled water all day? It's awful. Yeah, me too. Right? So this is a way for organizations that usually sell bottled water to sell refillable bottles and for people to have free access to water. So there will come a time during this next round of granting where I will, by some miracle, work with the city and we will have a large event that does not have any single-use water bottles being sold. Like, that's one of my goals. So if you see me driving down the road with this thing, don't honk. Hear me. So I justified the need for this by doing a proof of concept. So I got 4 of these blue Igloo water dispensers and I loaned them to Walter Anderson Museum of Art. They had Walter Anderson Week. They used them, and the data that they gave back to me was that they saved 2,197 single-use bottles from being used just by using these 4 containers and having a staff member dedicated to keeping them clean and refilled. That's huge. That's huge. Multiply that, you know, across the Gulf. Every festival, and that's a small festival, you know, that's not Mardi Gras where there's 80,000 people. So we use these little glass jars during meetings too, and during each meeting you're saving 15 to 20 single-use bottles. A point I like to make is that every step counts, right? There's like a quote going around, we don't need to be perfectly plastic free, but we just need a lot of people to be imperfectly headed that direction. You know what I mean? Like, I think I butchered that a lot, but you don't have to be perfect. You just got to do the best you can. And if we're all doing these small steps, like that water container at monthly staff meetings is making a difference. And then this real quick, I'll talk about this. This was the cleanup crew. Did anybody hear about our cleanup crew? I worked with Mandy Sarton. She's the MSU Extension Mississippi Coastal Cleanup Director. We had 40 volunteers, including our staff. We were the last float in the Biloxi Fat Tuesday Mardi Gras Parade, and so we were literally the cleanup crew. We walked behind our float. We had 2 people inside bagging everything and storing it as we cleaned in real time with the parade. We picked up 3 tons of beads and trash off of the parade route, and we didn't even come close to touching it. We just got what we could as we were keeping up with the parade. 3 tons. Like, that's crazy. So hopefully this, and the beads and those were all beads and trash that we're going to get run over when the roads were reopened. Like, the city of Biloxi doesn't clean for Mardi Gras until the next day, right? So hopefully this project that we finally got off the ground this year is going to allow us to discuss some fundamental changes with Mardi Gras. And you want to talk about getting pushback. Ooh. Well, that's with Mardi Gras. You know, so we did this project as a way to show people we don't want to take Mardi Gras away. We don't want people to not throw stuff. We just want to show people how much waste. We want people to start to think about changes that can be made. So, okay, I see a bunch of questions popping up. What are some?
To start off, John, how about you ask your question? I think that's a good, simple one that's on everybody's mind.
So what are some of the products that you would like recommend that we could get to like use at home?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's a lot of products out there. I would encourage, because each of you is going to have different needs for your home, right? So anytime I talk to people, I encourage you to make a list of all the plastics that you're using at home, right? And then look at that list and see where you can make a change. For me, it's about looking at that list and where can I make a change that's not going to affect my budget. You know, I'm not trying to spend $300 on some sort of water filtration thing, right? So once you've made that list, then you can go through and see where you can make small changes. For me, I use 100% consumer recycled toothbrushes, 100% post-consumer plastic recycled toothbrushes instead of a petroleum-based toothbrush. Because every piece of plastic that's ever been made is still around. It still exists. So all those toothbrushes that you use, they're still around. They're going to outlive you. Probably going to outlive the planet, right? So that's a place where you can switch. Purchasing post-consumer recycled plastic products also supports the recycling industry. If you want a closed loop, you got to meet at both ends, right? I switched to a refillable razor. You know, it's like the old school ones where you buy the single, real thin razor pack. So the razor itself, I just refill the sharp part, and I have the handle forever. Shampoo bars. You know, trying to reduce the amount of plastic that I use by using bar soap instead of pump soap. I just got so frustrated. You go to buy a refill, it's a freaking plastic bag. You know what I mean? It's not really helping me. So I switched to bar soap. And it was weird at first, but I actually like it a lot more now. Those are some small things. Using beeswax covers instead of saran wrap. Even silicone, reusable silicone products in your kitchen is better than single-use saran wrap, right? You don't have to be perfect, but you can make better choices. Does that help? Yeah, and a lot of times, like, it's weird because, hang on, I'm reading this question. Yes, shampoo bars are awesome. Who asked that question? Yeah, shampoo bars are great. A lot of these things, it's just kind of getting used to something new, right? It's trying it and giving it a chance. It might be different, but it's not necessarily bad. Does that make sense? And if you hate the shampoo bar, maybe that's not the move you make. Maybe you choose to find shampoos that are sold in 100% consumer recycled plastic, right? So make your choices. We'll all get there. We all just got to try. Right? And the thing is like, I don't know about you guys, but I like to be able to look at my home and not see a bunch of stuff that is going to be trash. Right? It's not about just switching away from plastic. It's about zero waste, right? It's about reducing the amount of trash that I'm putting out into the world. Useless byproduct of my consumer existence. You know? Like, that's not the legacy I want to leave for our planet. Is my trail of toothbrushes, you know? I mean, I'm thinking, I don't know about you guys, but like, I'm thinking a lot more about that now, you know? We have an opportunity for great positive change in our planet and in our world right now. And I think it's a good time to really start having these discussions and start really looking inward at what we're consuming, how and why. That make sense?
Yeah, and I think before we move to the next question, Amber had a good one. Amber, do you want to ask yours about it's related to what we're talking about, just about being local?
Wait, which one? Oh, the grocery store one? Or not grocery store. I was just wondering if like all those products like you're talking about, like going to, if they were in our local stores.
Yeah, that's another issue, is that a lot of times they're not, right? They're not, because there isn't the consumer demand for those products yet, right? And so they're just not available. That's kind of the other thing. I help people find sources. So, you know, you guys are in Mobile, right? Yeah. So Whole Foods has the toothbrushes that I use, and they're actually comparably priced. Sometimes you can get them on sale. That's what I always do. I ordered my razor from Amazon. Amazon is not the picture of corporate perfection, but I'm fighting the battle the best I can, right? We have to make our choices and do the best we can. I know that a lot of times at Target, you can find clearance water bottles. You know, I never pay full price at Target. I've also seen a switch of products at Target. Walmart's a bit slower in terms of recycled plastic packaging, in terms of selling products that you can't really find other places. So my go-tos are still places like Amazon, Whole Foods, if it's not obscenely expensive. Target's a good place to look. And another random place is like Marshall. You know, the stores that buy extra stuff off of the back of trucks, a lot of times they'll have some really good products. I found bamboo paper towels at Marshall's before. And that's a paper towel that you can wash and reuse. It's not really great before you wash it, but after you wash it, you can reuse it for years. It's amazing. Did I answer your question? Okay,
Yes,
what else? Okay, good. Yeah, so this question from Austin, that's a huge problem, right? So right now, to me, moving away from petroleum-based plastic is what needs to happen now, right? So we're going to switch to the training wheel plastic, which is the PLA plastic. We're going to start that discussion. We're going to start that dialogue. In that discussion and dialogue, I'm also having the discussion about the economic impact of developing industrialized composting down here on the coast. I don't talk about plastic free in terms of like saving the turtles. I talk about plastic free in terms of building green economy. That's how a lot of people speak, right? We talk through money. How's this going to help my business? How can I build the economy? You know, and so that's how I talk about it. So I talk with municipalities. How can this increase your revenue stream? How can we get jobs for people? how can we create smaller jobs that make connections? People bringing, transporting the waste from restaurants to our industrial compost sites. So the advantage to switching to PLA down here in the South, specifically right now, is just that we are getting away from petroleum-based. It will eventually break down to its organic state, and it opens a larger dialogue about industrialized composting. And the fact that we don't need petroleum-based plastic. Why not switch to plant?
Well, I know there's a couple of questions about just possible alternatives to plastics for different things. Cody is our mycelium person, and he had a question about the role of mushrooms potentially being part of the solution. If Cody, you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I'll ask. About 6 years ago, maybe more, to be honest, I read an article about how mushroom mycelium can be used to replace plastic packaging like styrofoam blocks, peanuts, etc. Has there been any more push for that in the recent years? Since that it's also fire retardant, water resistant.
Yeah, I haven't investigated it that much, but I know that companies like IKEA are moving to use that mushroom-based packaging instead of styrofoam. So it's happening. I haven't investigated it a ton, but yeah, there is a movement in that direction. And you know, why not? That's great. Like, it's going to biodegrade in the water, right? It's a plant starch. So yeah, as far as I know, it's still moving, but it's not, mainstream. Did I answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Hey, if you find anything else about that.
Will do.
Okay, who's got questions?
I know Haley had a similar question to Cody's. We've just been doing, in our training, we've been learning a lot about algae and plankton lately. So Haley had a question about, similar to Cody's, about that having a role potentially in the solution.
You'll have to ask it for.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if she could speak or not. She said, to kind of piggyback off of Cody's question, I know it was recently discovered that some plankton species can break down some microplastics. Do you think that that could eventually be utilized to reduce plastic in the ocean?
I think that that's a real good question. I can't speak to that scientifically. I can speak to that with my opinion, and my opinion is that yes, that would be amazing. If it is a naturally occurring plankton or algae, right? I think a lot of problems that we get into as humans is that we develop something, harness something that gets rid of a problem we've created, and then we create a larger problem. I'm thinking about could do, So I think that, yes, I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to use Mother Nature to break down completely man-made products. I hope that we look at the repercussions of that before we do any releasing into the ocean. I hope that we learn as much as we can about that process. But yeah, I think that's viable. I think they're discovering, there's so much about this world we don't know. So. Oh, hang on. Yeah, I think the thing though is that we need to eliminate plastic use, right? Like the tap is on and the sink is clogged and overflowing. The only way that we're going to fix it is by stopping the flow of plastic. We've got so much plastic on this planet. it's the marker of the human time. What is that, the Anthropocene age? That's our marker. Is that empty Diet Coke bottle? You know, like that's gross.
And before we get to Ashley has a good one related to the current situation that we're in, but I know Camille, you had another one about product based. If you want to ask yours.
Yeah, so I was just having this conversation with my sister the other day, and she has a newborn, and she's actually like, really concerned about the environment, and we wanted to know about laundry detergent. She wants to cut out the chemicals, and just thinking about the environment won't be the healthiest detergent to use, if you know anything about laundry.
I know very little about laundry detergent, but you definitely want to get away from anything, you know, that's not natural. You know what I mean? Anything that you can't really pronounce or understand, you probably don't want to put on your baby. Or on your, you know, eventually the baby's clothes are going to touch the baby. I don't know much about specific products. I would definitely investigate that more, because a lot of times we don't need to use like a laundry soap. There's other ways, other products we could make our own. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to suggest a specific brand.
I have a suggestion to interrupt, but I was like, oh, I'm doing laundry currently, but this is a really good brand you can get at Walmart or Target, and it's like it's comparable price, and like everything's made of recycled material, and this whole thing I think was like $8. So
awesome.
I would suggest.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just was doing laundry while we were having this.
Yeah, I've used 7th Generation also. Their unscented is pretty good. And they, for a while, they were doing plant-based bottles. That went away for some reason, maybe because not enough people were buying them. But, yeah, so 7th Generation, Ecos is a good brand, comparably priced, and a lot of times you can use less.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they make like soap like for like a washing machine, but I know Dr. Bronner's makes like a lot of good soap products too that are like generally eco-friendly and stuff. Like they make stuff for like I think it was Dr. Bronner's made the backcountry like laundry soap that we use to do laundry, you know, out in the woods, so it doesn't like, you know, that we have to disperse back into the environment. And they made it like, you know, specifically to be like plant-based and everything, so it doesn't have any kind of negative ecological effect. But I don't know if they make anything for like a commercial washing machine that was in like a, you know, take some water from the river and do the best you can wringing your clothes out situation. Ashley, if you want to ask your question.
For you to ask for her as well.
Okay, I need to find it. She had a lot of different questions. I don't know where it is, but essentially the question was had to do with the coronavirus situation. Oh, I found it. With the coronavirus being a serious issue right now, I know a lot of businesses have discontinued letting people use their own cups for refills or their reusable bags at grocery stores. Do you believe with all the phases to lighten the severity of the virus, at some point we will be allowed to use our reusable items in public places again?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, right? I'm gonna go with yes. Yes. You know, the funny thing is that like, so I was doing Biloxi community response like the 2 weeks after we got locked down, and I was making bags for, you know, like hygiene kits for homeless people and hygiene kits for my neighbors. A lot of my neighbors didn't even have soap, right? So I asked at Walmart. I went to the neighborhood Walmart and I asked if I could have a stack of bags, right? Walmart is like notorious for putting one orange in 4 bags. So I was like, I'm going to ask Walmart. They told me no, that they can't give out their bags right now, that they're having a bag shortage. The next time I was in there, they had signs up on their like checkout that said, "Help us out, bring in your reusable bag." Okay, you know. So I think that I think you still can use reusable bags. I think it was kind of a personal thing that people stopped. I know I did for a while just because I didn't know, you know, wasn't sure. I think that might be store specific too. In terms of the cups and reusable cups, I think that's going to be a personal restaurant choice as well, or business choice as well. I think that might be a little farther off, which makes me really sad because before the lockdown, you know, I was getting ready to approach the health department about how people could bring in their own takeout containers and have them packaged at the restaurant, right? So that was something I was thinking about. And I'm still thinking about that, and I think maybe there's a way to continue doing that kind of work. And so that when we do come back and things are a new normal, you can bring your own takeout boxes into a restaurant and have them filled. Like those are discussions I think we could do now. And we could continue, and we could think a little bit more. Because right now my restaurants are having trouble sourcing biodegradable products. They're having trouble sourcing plastic alternatives, which is awful. They don't want to use styrofoam. They want people to bring their reusable cups, but they can't. Carrie, I bring my own Tupperware too.
I get really weird looks, and I don't think my husband appreciates it as much, but
when I get takeout, I ask them to put it on a plate, and I'll go in and sit down and scrape it from their plate into my reusable container and leave. Sometimes I leave an extra tip because I'm a weirdo. You know, they're like, what are you doing? But they won't, right? So instead of them packaging it in their styrofoam, and that's money that's leaving their restaurant, right? Anytime they just idly throw in those to-go silverware, those extra packets of ketchup, all of that represents money. It's just walking out the door and is trash. Like they're paying the trash. So how do we rethink that, right? So that's one way that I do it. Granted, I don't eat out a ton. You know, also taking your own Tupperware and just putting it in when you're done eating. You don't even need it to go container. Any other questions? I want to make sure that you guys, do you have any questions about my job? Kind of a weird job.
Matthew, actually, well, since we were on the topic of soap, he had a good question about making your own soap, if that's a possibility.
Oh yeah, you can. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a question, but I
gotcha.
mentioned that you can make your own soap out of bar soap, and it'd be good for babies because if you can use bar soap on your body, it should work for laundry detergent.
Yeah, so that's, you can use Dr. Bronner's bar soap, shred it, and you can make your own laundry soap that way. And it's wicked cheap. Like if you just take the time to do it, it's so much cheaper. Like to make your own soap products at home, and they work just as well, if not better. So we're on Facebook. The easiest way to connect with me is through the Plastic Free Gulf Coast Facebook page. You can message me if you have more questions or whatever. You know, this isn't like a project that I'm going to be wrapping up in a year. You know what I mean? Like, this is a lifetime of work, right? This is a social change. I'm looking to create a large scale social change. on the Gulf Coast, right?
Yeah, that's
And it's
awesome.
slow, but slow and steady, and with dialogue, with open mind and dialogue. Yeah?
So I put the link in the chat box that she just mentioned about the Facebook page, and it's 2 o'clock, so I'm going to let us jump off and nobody has any other questions. But real quick, so I do remember. I think I was going to see. Did you work with Eric Sparks at to make the survey that you had everybody fill out? Like, is the school still working, like pushing this movement as well? I don't know if we ever touched on that part.
Yeah, Eric and Mandy Sarton and Eric Sparks work for the MSU Extension. They're partners with me on this NOAA grant. So they're helping me get the surveys live on the MSU website. The SurveyMonkey survey, we're in that time between when it's created and when it goes live on the MSU site. So that's why y'all got the SurveyMonkey survey. But they're uploading. I have a survey for restaurants, the education survey, and then just a general plastic use survey. So the main takeaway that I would like you guys to do is to make a list of all the plastics in your life and find one thing that you can change. Just change one of those things. And then once you get in that habit, move to the next thing on your list. And I will tell you, I have gone to Sonic in the last 4 years, and I have gotten a cherry limeade with a straw and a styrofoam cup. Nobody's perfect, right? You try the best you can.
Wonderful. I love that. I love that send off. Thanks, Elizabeth. I think we'll definitely work that into our curriculum. Thanks for taking the time with us today. I hope you have a great week.
Oh, thank you. You guys too. Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anytime.